Okay, just a couple of words about one of our sponsors. Headquartered in Chennai, CAMS is a technology-enabled service solutions partner for the BFSI sector. Over the years, CAMS has been integral in building a credible reputation of the Indian financial infrastructure, now co-owned by the NSE Strategic Investment Corporation Limited, a subsidiary of the National Stock Exchange, as well as HDFC Group and Axis Investments Private Limited. CAMS is the market-leading platform-based service partner to the mutual fund industry in India, serving over 62% of the assets under management. That translates to 150 billion US dollars and 53 million investor accounts. Besides mutual fund services, CAMS has forayed to other BFSI segments, managing business processes for private equity funds, private insurance companies, private banks, and NBFCs. The next session we have lined up for you is titled, Change the Rules. How do you steer away from the trodden path and create groundbreaking ideas to revolutionize the world? Learn from an institution that has made it their mission. To take us on the journey, I invite on stage Mr. Manish Kothari. You will of course see his profile on screen. This session is brought to you by Akamai and Access Healthcare.
Hi everybody, thanks for having me here. It's really exciting to be here. First time in Chennai for myself, I'm from Udaipur. So I wanted to talk, let's see, are the slides coming up? Let's see, there we go. All right, super. So I'll start with a little story. I'll start with a story about my daughter, and then I'll talk. My daughter's 8, she joined the Girl Scouts, and in the Girl Scouts, one of the things you do to raise money is you sell Girl Scout cookies. And the first day she went, she was really excited. She got this whole box of Girl Scout cookies, and she went out to sell them. Unfortunately for her, the other 800 houses in our areas also have little daughters who are also selling Girl Scout cookies. She sold 3. It was depressing. She came home, she cried. And we sat down and said, okay, what are you going to do differently? How are you going to do this? The next day, she got her younger brother, who's 4. She put up a cart, she put flags on the cart, she dressed up really cutely, and she started walking down the street. And she started selling Girl Scout cookies. She sold 200. The next day, she's 9 years old, okay? The next day, she comes back, and this is without me telling her what to do. She comes back, she calls up 2 of her friends, who are neighbors, and they put a stand down there, and I ask her, what are you doing? And she says, I'm going to give away lemonade. And I'm like, what are you doing? She put up a stand, put up lemonade, had the Girl Scout cookies next to her. The 3 girls together sold 800 boxes. To me, that's really exciting. That's entrepreneurship, and I didn't tell her a thing, and I learned a lot from that. I was like, wow, maybe I should start giving lemonade away for free with every one of the things we do. But anyway, let me tell you about SRI. SRI has been around for a long time. We've done a lot of things. We're a large company. We're roughly $500 million. My group's a small group on there that focuses on the venture side of activities. We're a nonprofit. We're really focused on healthy productivity life. We have many different areas we work on. We're located really in the heart of Silicon Valley, so we've been at the center of a lot of what's been happening for the last 50, 60 years over there. Over 50% of all venture investment, even today, happens within 25 miles of SFO. So it's a big center, it's an exciting place, it's an exciting place where you know new things happening. Today I'm going to talk about a few of them. I'm going to talk about an area that I'm particularly interested in. You've all used some of our innovations. The first computer mouse came out of SRI, which was then licensed by Steve Jobs and then went out to Apple. Siri for your phone came out of us. First telesurgical robotic system, ultrasound systems, all the first work was done, and GE, Philips, and Siemens have all licensed those technologies. HD TV came out of our Princeton offices, which was RCA technologies. So a lot more. So we've been around for a while. Not many people know about us, but we've had a big impact. We typically do a lot of research before we create a company, and what I want to talk about today is how do you take hard tech out into the world. I think we've had a great opportunity in the last 5-6 years to use multiple things like the cloud, like APIs and other things to get out in the world really fast and change businesses. We're now reaching a new point where we're trying to influence the physical world, not just the digital world. How do you improve all of our health? My grandfather, who's 99 years old, when I went to visit him in Udaipur, the first thing he did was try and throw his walker behind the couch because he did not want to see him using a walker. Now, how do you change that? That to me is a really important thing. How can we use all of our entrepreneurship and drive and the things we've gained with the digital world to create that change so that we can restore empowerment, dignity, and hope to a lot of people, be they the aging society, be they disabled, be they any of us. So I'm going to talk about one of them. I'm just going to skip this. Here's an example of some work we've done recently. Let's got to get the sound up here. Sound's not on.
Just outside San Francisco. And we've been making a robot ride a motorbike. Moving forward, we're going to be racing Valentino Rossi.
So we did this with the Yamaha, and you ask yourself, why do we do this? Why do you need a robot that can ride a motorcycle? Well, there's good reasons aside. One of the reasons, as you can see even in India, there's a lot of people who still ride motorcycles, and while the safety rates of all of cars have stayed flat, have improved, the accident rate of motorcycles has been rising year over year over year. And one of the reasons cars have stayed safe is that they have dummies that you can use to test them. You can test airbags. How do you test a motorcycle? So there was a reason behind what we did this, and it's true that Yamaha uses this mainly for marketing at this point and not so much for all the other things. But what I was trying here was showing an attempt that we took to try and do something really crazy and push the envelope of what you may want to try and do in the world. And I'm going to try and give you some examples and also talk about some difficulties one have doing this. So we've started a lot of companies. We've started Nuance, which is pretty well known to a lot of people. Siri, a bunch of others that have been acquired by good companies. Typically, we start 4 to 7 companies a year. We raise roughly $50 to $60 million a year of investment as we go along. I run the team there. The market cap right now of these companies that have gone public is around $60 billion. Now, the first thing I do when I talk to people within our group is I start by saying that yes, we did invent the mouse. Yes, we invented Siri. And then we created all these companies with these great market caps, and then I say, so what? You're only as good as what you're doing today. You have to start again. And this is really, really important. As entrepreneurs, you don't want to ever sit on your laurels. You want to ask yourself again, what is what you want to create? What do you want to change? And sometimes we find our best strength in repeat entrepreneurs, people who have created a great thing the first time and want to come back, and this time they want to do something social or different or more difficult. And these are the areas that we are interested in doing. Things related to human augmentation, things related to my grandfather, things related to taking what my daughter did there and encapsulating it in a way that can be understood via artificial intelligence. A venture by definition is a risky or daring journey. I think we've heard a lot about that over the last 2 days, and extra points for anybody who recognizes what that movie comes from. So I'm going to talk about some of the different dynamics of doing some more hardware-centric or some harder AI-centric, deep technology-centric systems rather than some other approaches. One, hard tech is tough. You can't get to an MVP very easily. You can't go out, I'm going to go to an MVP, get A/B testing in the field, adjust as we fly. You need a larger investment to get to first product. Key talent is often harder to acquire because they're usually working for large corporations. You know, your standard approaches that we've been using to drive systems like SaaS, Amazon Web Cloud Services, Akamai, who's a great sponsor of this segment, by the way, as I heard, and others are much harder to use than these kind of things. You're trying to build something, a molecular diagnostic system that can be sold for 50 rupees per use. You can't do that easily, so you have to change the way you think. We take a very mammalian approach. We cannot just try things and switch and fly and pivot until we get the right answer. We tend to nurture our systems, work closely to define the value proposition before we go out into the marketplace. A good example of that is you really need to know your market because your technology times are larger, your costs are higher, you better know that you can sell it at the end. That is very different. That constrains the whole startup dynamic. We have a pretty simple seven-word cheat sheet there. We start by saying you got to have a large and accessible market. An N of 1 is not an accessible market. You've got one person you're going to sell to, you're not going to succeed. An N of 1 billion is not a accessible market unless you can go via the web or the internet. So these are certain approaches we use. We really focus on sustainable and massive differentiation. You can't survive with small differentiation if you're asking for 15, 20, 50, $100 million in before you're really going to own a space. You better have protectable grounds. IP becomes very important. And the last, I think we've heard many people talk about it, but it can never be said enough, stellar team. I'm a very active investor myself. The number of times I've said no to a company because of the team is over 80 to 90% of those cases. And I've never, usually not articulated to the team that the reason I haven't funded them is the team. So they go back thinking it's something else, whereas the answer is just, you're not the right group of people. So you also have to understand the market well. I have some pretty simple rules that we apply. You've got to be able to sell the same thing to the same type of customers without breaking your bank, right? That's it. If you can do that, I'm interested in you, you're interested in me, and we can work together. Here's another technique that we've been using. This is becoming very important in Silicon Valley as the cycles are getting short. Is a simple concept of blue ocean versus red ocean. Blue ocean, easy swimming, no sharks to eat you. Red ocean, there's a ton of you, you're chomping at each other, there's competition, right? I often see people talking about, hey, there's no other companies like us. We're the only ones out there. Hear this all the time. Then I ask him, I said, okay, how many companies are being invested in at this time? Often there's quite a few more. And then you actually go and say, what's academicians doing? And there may be 500 papers there. So it's very important to think about how the commercial investment and research phases are going into the blue ocean, red ocean approach. It's a very simple way. It's an easy way to communicate. And if you nail all of them, you will get funded very easily. There was a great comment in one of the earlier talks where, you know, often what you do to get rid of the competition problem is increase your focus on what you're trying to solve. It's a brilliant comment. It's absolutely true. That is one way to convert all of these things to blue. And then I'm going to end by just saying, give an example. So we created a brilliant diagnostic system, right? It could handle a raw sample, no training, You can throw it in, you could do 500 different analyses all the time. So you could add the flu, you could add viral versus bacterial, you could do all of those things. We even then went and looked at the market, and we said, wow, this market is growing really fast. There's regulated markets, there's unregulated markets. It's in the billions of dollars, you know, tick, 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 tick. People came to me and said, hey, let's invest in this. Well, the first thing you then go is say, oh, by the way, 300 companies have been funded in this area in the last 2 years. It's a little problematic. The answer to this may be one of two things. You may either pack your bags and go home, and sometimes that's the best thing to do. You have one life, and I think this is one of the things that I tell all entrepreneurs. You have to view even more money important than the dollar I give you or any other investor give you is the minute that you are spending on this problem. If you don't think you should be spending a minute on this problem, don't spend the minute and don't waste my dollar. Both things are true. So you have one life. There's a lot of competition. The answer is, again, as was said earlier, focus, focus, focus. Find the sweet spot. I'm not going to tell you the answer we came up with here, but we did. We just raised $15 million for this company. But it took a while to find the sweet spot. It took me a year longer of funding the team before we could find the answer. Often the right way to, the answer comes back to the team, and it often comes back to the CEO. And I think we heard the word stamina used here quite a few times today. And you know, at Y Combinator, the team there uses 45 minutes to determine whether the company's in their system or not. And I asked the Y Combinator founders, how do you figure it out? How do you figure out in 45 minutes if you're going to put money in? And they said there's really 4 comments, 4 qualities. 1, the CEO has to be passionate. If they're not passionate, there's nothing there. The team has to be passionate. The CTO has to be passionate. All of those. They have to be a gifted storyteller. I think we saw one of the best talks I've ever seen in my life today with ThyroCare. What an amazing storyteller, right? There's just, you were drawn. You could not stop listening and applauding. Third, which people use the term stamina, but I use the term grit. It's a very well-researched thing. If you have a child or a grandchild, the number one evidence of success as they grow older is not scores, is not their academic performance, not anything else. It is grit. It is their ability to persevere through the third Bharatnatyam recital where people are telling them that they're not doing that well. That is grit. And then come out of it. That's hard. And that is it. And the last thing they have to do is attract a great team. To me, these are the 4 key elements. If you've got those 4, you've got the right person to solve it. And often this is what brings focus, because storytelling brings focus. So I'm just going to end here in the next few minutes with some examples. Here's an example. So let's take apple picking. All right. Apple picking in 1930 and 2012 is no different. You have ladders, you have ladders. You have trees with apples, trees with apples. The only difference is the ladder is made out of aluminum. One thing, we took a closer look at this and we said, hey, wait, there has been one change. The trees have gone from being 3D trees to 2D vines. What does this mean? We looked at this and said, wow, we can now start applying some image processing solutions because it's a 2D structure. AI can handle it, the software can handle it, computational computer vision can handle it. So this was a classic case of an area that had zero innovation for hundreds of years. It's a $50 billion business, just apples, in the US. In the worldwide, it's, I think, $100 billion. And if you add peaches, pears, cherries, it's a $200 billion business with no innovation, whereas the rest of agriculture is almost completely automated. That switch from 3D to 2D just opened itself up. So we went and created a company. I'll give you an example. So it's doing real-time computer vision, real-time AI, picking up what apples are ripe, real-time image processing, all in 0.01 seconds. It's only possible with the chip being strong again because the 0.99 seconds is for the system to move back and forth. I can tell you all the algorithms in here were done by Indians, by all of us, right? This is amazing. It's such a great thing. It's a highlight testament to our skills. It's something that traditionally in our startups here, we've done some work in the hard sciences. I can tell you in Silicon Valley, nobody's starting a company today that does not have AI in it. Nobody. It's a default requirement. So we are so uniquely gifted at this area that I can see us having the most impact you can imagine over the next hundreds of years. I want to move in my last example to a couple of examples around home healthcare. Again, my dad lives, my mom just passed away recently. My dad lives in Jaipur. He's alone. It gets harder and harder to be a lonely adult in India. It's not like the US where there's lots of care opportunities. It's much more complex here. The care gap is there in the US. It's also growing in India. It is not easy at all. What are you going to do? How are we going to live? When we work in Mumbai, our parent lives in Chennai, and you can only go there even every 2 months. It's not the same as being there. One example of this, coming back to my grandfather, was we started looking at things like exoskeletons. You see this thing on the left, it's a great exoskeleton. That looks like a monstrous device, like Dr. Doom or whatever from the things. So we asked ourselves, do we want to be Iron Man? Or do you want to be Spider-Man? Because Iron Man looks cool and they can fly, but they have to have a nuclear reactor on their chest. It's a little difficult to work that way. So how do I tell my grandfather to do that at least? Spider-Man looks a little more tractable. We started with a project where we started trying to build something that could help people walk over rough terrain. You know, just get that sense of what it would take. We then used that to create a flexible, wearable robotic suit. And this is still a prototype, an engineering prototype. Again, this sounds very engineering. It's 90% software. The hard part here is to get the timing of putting the load right with the sensors to get everything out. This is work we did here. We're now using that to create a suit that is going to be even lighter and wearable, and the next version of this that's already being created is going to be something that an older person can just put on, and it will automatically augment them, help them from falling, give them a little bit of support. This is the sort of thing that can really change the world. It is really, really important to my father, to my grandfather, to all of us as we grow older, because seniors are people, and we are people, and we will be there too. So this is the sort of work that really requires AI, everything else, and it requires complexity. I'm just going to go flip past these really quickly. Great, great, great. We're also taking that, since we're a nonprofit, we're taking that to areas like muscular dystrophy and other areas, and trying to help kids who can't walk, whose every day they walk, their muscles get weaker. Now look, this is not going to be a big business. We're not going to make hundreds of millions of dollars or billions off this. We will off the previous one. So what we do is, part of what our group does is we take back the profits we start making in our ventures and applying it in these mission-oriented ways that are consistent with the overall goals of the Institute. I'm going to end with one more example. And again, how do you keep people in the home? And let me show you a little clip here.
Can I help you find anything?
Where is the librarian?
Hey, Frank.
Hey there.
What'll it be? The usual?
I'd be more interested in getting a phone number.
Call from Madison Wells.
Maddie, my girl.
Hi! Has Hunter been coming around?
Dad, you're right in the middle of the road.
Look at this place. This is gross. You have a problem. I brought you something. Hi, Frank.
You have got to be kidding me. That thing is going to murder me in my sleep.
Somebody's going to murder you in your sleep.
So I think there was a lot of stuff there. I mean, obviously in India we have a lot of help, but in the world, in the US and other markets, even here it's getting harder. In the rest of the world you don't. This is the concept of timing, right? I mean, you really, I think, you know, for all of our efforts, all of our brilliance, many startups fail just simply because of timing. And so a lot of what we do is really look carefully at when 5 years ago, robotics was not at all ready. it was just not functional, not usable, not affordable, and definitely not maintainable. We're hitting a point now where the functionality, usability, and affordability 5 years from now is all going to be there. The maintainability will come, and as it was said in the ThyroCare system, don't worry about that. You can drop your prices down a bit. You can increase the maintainability once you've got the key features established. So we're building one right now. We're building one. But we're not just building a robot. This is the important thing. We have to focus on what people really do when they interact, as that video showed.
Exhausted and I don't sleep very well.
So this is automatically
It takes
detecting
me
your
a
emotions.
while to fall asleep. I usually have a few bad dreams. And that wakes me up, or I'll wake up and I won't feel rested.
It's hard to see here, but it's telling when people are
It
unhappy,
makes me
happy,
exhausted
sad,
for work
upset,
the whole day
confused.
and for the whole week. And then I don't feel like doing anything on the weekends because...
Okay, so you get the point. But the point is this is all software. You can convert speech to text automatically. You can actually determine the emotionality associated with it, and you can start interacting differently. We all know that we treat our phones, I mean, I think most of us treat our phones better than we treat our spouses or other people, honestly. I think maybe it should be the other way around, but it's true. But that's partly because we've drawn a huge close emotional reaction association with our systems. Similarly, all of these techniques have to lever. These are great opportunities. This can be used in many different ways. It can be used on your phone. It can be used elsewhere. So, you know, the day may come someday when you're sitting there watching TV and your robot brings you a beer and soda. And let's just call the robot Piyush, and you go, thanks Piyush, thanks for bringing me, you know, a beer and some popcorn. And you may play chess with your kids too. And then when your son says, hey Piyush, get me a beer. Piyush looks at your son and says, Manish, I'll get you a beer in 5 years, 6 days, and 3 hours. Because it knows who said it, it knows who he is, and it knows how old he is, and it knows how to respond. That is the future that is coming. And I thank you very much.